time now for Film School. I've got Joe Fortunato. He is our film aficionado and professor, and he's going to talk to us today about a classic movie, one of my favorites, one of the things that actually inspired me to get into being a reporter. I never became quite the intrepid investigative reporter as they did at the Washington Post. That was my dream. But All the President's Men with Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. We're going to talk about that today. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
Good morning, Jeanne. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing?
We're doing really, really well. I thought this would be a cool movie to talk about because, you know, the presidential race is heating up and there's all this intrigue and backbiting and carrying on and All the President's Men. Wow, that just was such a huge movie in its time, and I wonder if you could revisit that for us.
Absolutely, and not just for this time, but all time. It's a great movie. All the President's Men was released April 9th, 1976. It was directed by Alan J. Pakula. Written by Carl Bernstein, Bob Woodward, and the great screenwriter William Goldman. Of course, it was based on Woodward and Bernstein's book of the same name. It starred Dustin Hoffman, Robert Redford, Jack Warden, Hal Holbrook, Jason Robards. Quite a cast it had. It had 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, which it didn't win. But it did win 4 Oscars, including a supporting actor for Jason Robards, as well as writing, art direction, and sound. It's really considered one of the best movies of its type, the political thriller, and it was part of a whole cadre of political thrillers in the 70s where that genre really blossomed. Probably a lot because of Watergate and stuff, but there's a whole slew of movies in that, and All the President's Men is one of the best. In fact, the AFI list ranks it as the number 77 greatest movie of all time. And just a few years ago, the New Republic did a ranking of the most significant political movies of all time. And I'm saying significant, not best. And it ranked number 4 on that list. And just a quick aside here, TCM, Turner Classic Movies, is up until from now until the election, is doing airing a lot of those movies from that list every Friday night. So check those out, or you can use the TCM app to look at them later. And All the President's Men is on that list as well. This was Robert Redford's performance as Bob Woodward and Dustin Hoffman's performance as Carl Bernstein together tied for 27th place on the AFI's list of 100 heroes and villains. So only time that two actors kind of got combined as one for that. It was a big hit. In fact, it was the 4th biggest hit of 1976, outgrossing popular films like The Bad News Bears and The Omen. And this film is still shown to aspiring students of journalism. I know that for a fact. They show it at the Cronkite School at Arizona State. Originally, Robert Redford bought the rights to the book, like I said, by Bernstein and Woodward, in 1974, the year before it was published, or the year it was first published, I should say. And adjusted for inflation, it would have been the equivalent of $2 million today, which is quite a lot of money for a source material. Woodward and Bernstein offered to write the screenplay. Unfortunately, they weren't very good screenwriters, so they had a whole bunch of stuff that kind of no one cared about, and William Goldman kind of came in and cleaned the whole thing up. Robert Redford felt that casting himself, because he was also a producer, mind you, casting himself as Bob Woodward kind of unbalanced the film, so the obvious answer was to cast a star of equal weight for the role of Carl Bernstein. And originally he wanted Al Pacino, but he ended up with Dustin Hoffman. And he approached Dustin Hoffman at a Knicks game, of all places, and offered him the role of Carl Bernstein.
It was such a wonderful combination of the two. I mean, I really believed those were the characters, you know, and there was all these, like, the one scene I remember, of course I remember them in the newsroom and they got their sleeves rolled up and, you know, but I remember, you know, where they meet Deep Throats. They're kind of their spy guy that tells them, you know, gives them the lowdown, and they meet him in the parking lot. Remember that? It's kind of dark and mysterious.
Well, it's funny because Hal Holbrook was the first and only choice that they had to play Deep Throat, and he didn't want to do it. He said it's too small a role, and, you know, so he turned it down, thinking it was not significant enough. But Redford came to Holbrook's house and convinced him to take the role, saying, "Hey, Deep Throat is going to be the character that the audiences are going to remember more than any other in the film. And he was absolutely right. Going on 50 years later, that's who we're talking about. And I'm sure most people know this, but for those who don't, the code name Deep Throat was a reference to the notorious X-rated film of the same name that came out in 1972. You talked about the scenes in the newsrooms and stuff. To prepare for the roles, Redford and Hoffman hung out in the Washington Post newsroom for several weeks observing reporters and attending meetings and stuff. One time, Redford was just standing in a hallway. A group of high school students came through on a tour of the newspaper offices, and the students immediately started taking pictures of Redford with their pocket cameras. Now, keep in mind, this is before cell phone cameras, so they had portable cameras. Anyway, at that point, the real Bob Woodward walked by, and Redford told the students, "Hey, wait a minute, that's the real Bob Woodward. That's the guy I'm playing in the movie. Don't you want to take his pictures?" And the student says, "No," and they walked on.
Yeah. We journalists aren't all that interesting, but the people who play us in the movies on TV are a whole lot more interesting. So, do you have any kind of closing comments on this movie, or maybe even tell us if we're going to do like a movie marathon ourselves with political movies? Besides this one, are there any other ones that you could recommend?
Well, there's, like I said, this month, or actually more than this month, going into next month in November, Turner Classic Movies every Friday night. So it'll be tonight. They'll have a whole slate of political films. And if you miss them on the Friday nights that they air, the Turner Classic Movie app on your smart TV or on Fire Stick or Roku or whatever you use, usually, you can watch them for about 3 weeks. They make them available or such. So I would look into all those things. And just a couple of other production stories. There was so much attention to detail. You talked again about the newsroom. That the art department made replicas of out-of-date phone books just to have sitting on the shelf. Now that is precision there. The furious volley of typewriter hammers striking the newspaper, which is a sound we really don't hear anymore because we don't use typewriters. I guess computer keys can clack a little bit, but anyway, that typewriter hammer striking was actually a combined sound of gunshots and whiplashes over the actual sounds of typewriters, which was to accentuate the film's theme of words as weapons. So that's how movie making works, and that's also why it won an Oscar for sound.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I do remember those days in newsrooms. It was the electric typewriters, the IBM Selectrics, and they were pretty loud. So newsrooms were definitely loud places. Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure, as always, having you on with us. Joe Fortunato, our film studies professor, highlighting this week's classic film, All the President's Men, starring Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. A real classic. I'm going to have to check that out again. It's been a very long time since I've seen it, and all I remember in my head, I'm seeing Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman, and then Deep Throat, the guy that said he didn't want to, take that role. That's what I remember from that movie. So
there you go. I'll give you one last thing. If you're going to go, you or anyone else that's going to go revisit it, there's a very long scene. I think it's almost 6 minutes long, where Redford is on the telephone. And near the end of that sequence, he actually calls the person on the phone by the wrong name. But they just keep going, and so there's a little movie mistake in there for you an Easter egg, if you will, to look for.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that, and we'll also look forward to having you on the air with us again next Friday. Ray will be back. But thank you so much, Joe Fortunato, film studies professor with Film School on 93.5, 1590 WAKR.